Hello and welcome to Popcorn Mumbles, where we dig into the back catalog to select a film or television show to rewatch. I'm your host, Cody Nestor. Alongside me is my co-host, Todd Heel.
What's up, guys?
This week we have chosen the 2021 film Dune Part 1. Paul Atreides, a brilliant and gifted young man born into a great destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure the future of his family and his people. As malevolent forces explode into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resource in existence, only those who can conquer their own fear will survive. Dune Part 1 was released on October 22nd, 2021. On a budget of $165 million, it made $434 million. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 83% and an audience score of 90%. So, Todd, let's discuss Dune Part 1. Spoilers are ahead.
All right.
So, Todd, I'll start with this. Last week we watched Dune 1984. How do you view that film now after watching Dune Part 1?
And again, this is just my opinion. This is definitely the superior film right here.
Yeah, it definitely. I kind of set the stage. I've been telling you, how much I enjoy Dune Part 1 for a while, and I mean, it's not apples to apples. You're comparing,
Right.
You're comparing a movie made in 1984 on a much lower budget with much less technology at its disposal to something made in 2021.
Exactly.
That had the ability, and I think that's probably the biggest benefit to this film. It was able to actually be in two parts, even though you could. If you never got a part two, it could just stand on its own, I think. And I think that's how it was designed and how it was filmed. But again, it had the advantage of being a two-parter, so it could kind of luxuriate in some of the craziness and some of the high sci-fi concepts that this film has.
Yeah, everything had more time to be set up. I think more time to breathe, more time to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Todd, before we jump into the story, I got a little game for you.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a term from Dune. And you do your best to tell me what it means, okay?
Okay, I'll try.
All right, I'm going to start you off easy here. Bene Gesserit.
Those are the priestess type women that have the power of the voice.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, nailed it. Yeah, they are the order that we see Lady Jessica's a part of. Depicted in the '84 film is bald, not bald here.
Not bald here, thank goodness.
Fremen.
Those are the people that populate. Shoot the planet. Arrakis.
Arrakis, yes. Frem kit.
Medical kit? I don't know.
So, as seen in this movie, it's the the desert survival kit that the Fremen use. Dr. Yue gives it to Paul at one point to carry into the desert.
It has like that little tin in it they use to bury underground, kind of. Am I wrong there?
A little tin? What do you mean?
That was one point in the movie where they're under the sand in like a tent. Was that part of that kit?
Tent. I thought it said 10. I was like, oh, no. Tent. Yeah, you're right. Gom Jabbar.
Is that the needle?
That's the needle, yes, that the Reverend Mother holds to Paul's neck during this test. The Kwisatz Haderach.
That's what the Bene Gesserit think that Paul can become. Am I right?
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah, basically, it's the shortening of the way of the one that can be two places simultaneously. Basically, the kind of the Bene Gesserit version of the one.
Okay.
Lisan al-Gaib.
I'm stumped on this one.
I think this one is only mentioned in this one, not in the David Lynch one. It's the Fremen term for like the off-world prophet or Messiah.
Okay.
I think they refer to him like you see Paul and Lady Jessica when they arrive. All the natives are like kind of saying that and chanting that to them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember the chants. Yeah.
Muad'Dib.
Muad'Dib.
That's the name that Paul takes when he becomes a Fremen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely nailed that one. Also, I didn't know this until I was like looking this up for you. It's also the name of that little adopted kangaroo mouse.
Oh, we kind of see in that one scene?
Yes,
okay.
I didn't know. I said adopted. Adapted is what I meant to say. Yeah, the little adapted kangaroo mouse that you see kind of bouncing around on the dunes in this film.
Gotcha.
The Sardaukar.
I don't remember them being in the first one, but is that race of like militaristic type people that the Harkonnens kind of used to do the battle?
Yeah, I think they're mentioned in the first one, but I don't think we ever actually see them.
Okay.
And last term, Todd, the Shai Hulud.
You got me there.
It's the Fremen name for sandworms.
Okay.
On Arrakis. And I think there's may actually be more specific to like the one they call like the Old Man of the Desert. There's like I think a mural inside where the the Atreides go, and like in in their complex, their base.
Yeah.
I think there's actually like a mural of that specific sandworm, but that's what Shai Hulud is.
Okay.
You did pretty good.
I think
though.
I did pretty
You
decent
did pretty
right
good.
there.
Yeah. So I guess we should get on into the story, so Todd. So let's pick up here. So where does our story begin?
So I think we kind of begin with Zendaya as Chani. She's kind of giving us our opening narrative, kind of talking about the history of Arrakis and her people.
Yeah, how spice harvesting works on Arrakis. Yeah, basically that's where we start out here.
I think from there we go to, I think it's Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto. We're on their planet, which is Caladan.
Caladan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Todd not speaking.
You're doing so well, Todd.
Okay. Well, we make our way to Caladan?
Caladan, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, home of the Atreides. And then just like from the start, like you said, we kind of talked about it in the opening. From the start, this film kind of gets to take its time.
Yeah.
You get to have scenes. Remember scenes, Todd?
Yeah.
In films, this movie gets to have scenes. Like you get a lot more backstory because we see a lot more of Caladan. You kind of see like the scale and kind of the history and the power of House Atreides that you don't really get in the David Lynch '84 film. You also get more kind of set up between Lady Jessica and Paul. You get to kind of see his training with the voice.
Yeah.
That's something that's just very speedily ran through in the David Lynch one, as well as his like setting up his like visions and his dreams and all that stuff. You just kind of get to luxuriate in it a little bit and actually kind of get that world building that I think is missing from the David Lynch one without the inner monologue.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
We get Duncan Idaho here.
Yeah, he actually has some stuff to do.
He's actually set up as a character, not just a guy who has two lines and dies.
Yeah.
He's played in this film by Jason Momoa, who I think does a good job.
I do too. Yeah.
He's bearded Momoa and non-bearded Momoa.
Yeah.
So ladies, whichever you preference there.
You get the best of both worlds,
Yeah,
I guess.
if you like a bearded Momoa, this film's for you. If you like a non-bearded Momoa, this film's also for you. But yeah, we get more of Paul's visions and his dreams, and like we get more scenes of him and the Duke before they actually leave for Arrakis.
Right.
And I really like the relationship that Leto and Paul have in this one. It's not, I don't know, I feel like over the years you get that, like when you're dealing with like military families or families of power, you always get that like very cliche, like the father who's like disappointed in the son and like never quite lives up to the father's expectations and all that. But here it's like, there's a line where he's talking about, he's showing them his signet ring, and he's talking about like if it never comes to you, if you don't want it, like what is the line he says? If your answer is no, you'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be, my son.
Right.
So like they have like a great kind of little relationship there.
That was good stuff. Yeah.
We also see Gurney Halleck, this time played by Josh Brolin.
Yes.
In this film. Patrick Stewart out.
Josh Brolin in. Better Shields in.
That was my next note. Yeah, the look of the personal shields. Like again, we can't. This is not apples to apples with the.
Yeah,
84.
we're not going to be knocking Dune '84. It's just a different movie at a different time.
Yeah, I do think the knock there is there was a better way to do that in 1984. Like I said, just put a glow effect around them, which is kind of what this is in a way, but just taken up a notch. But man, I love the look of the personal shields here, and you understand a lot more about them. The slow blade penetrates the shield, those kind of things. Like you see Gurney, and now that Duncan is taken off, he's going on the advanced team to Arrakis, which Paul wants to join him because he has these visions that Duncan's going to die.
Right.
Which, spoiler alert, he may just do. But Gurney kind of takes over his training, and Duncan is known as one of the best swordsmen. Gurney himself is known as one of the best swordsmen in the universe, and he kind of takes over that training of Paul. He doesn't really let up.
No, he's pretty hard on it.
He's pretty. I mean, he knows what's coming, and I think that's one of the more interesting parts of this that really gets played up in this film is like everyone, pretty much maybe except Paul, knows what's coming. The Duke knows what's coming. They're being sent here to fail at the very least, and at the most, they're being sent here to be destroyed.
Right.
And Gurney kind of knows that and senses it, and Leto kind of knows that and senses it as well. We also get to see, right off the top of the bat, we get to see the Harkonnens.
Yes, yes.
In this film, it's pronounced Harkonnens, which I kind of actually prefer.
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that. I was like, they
Yeah.
changed the pronunciation, but this works better.
I don't know which one is right, but
Yeah.
I like Harkonnen. So tell us about the peek behind the scenes we get at the Harkonnen style.
So we kind of see Dave Bautista. He's playing Raban.
Yes.
He kind of bursts in on the Baron, playing by Stellan Skarsgård, and he's like, why have they done this to us? Why have they took this away from us? And
His little advisor guy. I don't know his name is David Malchian or something like that.
yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff.
I was gonna say, did you recognize him? He was
Polka Dot Man from Suicide
Polka
Squad.
Dot Man. Yeah, he was a random insane Joker goon from The Dark Knight.
Right.
That was captured. He voiced Calendar Man in that Batman: The Long Halloween animated film.
Right,
Not
yeah.
too recently. He's one of those guys. Like if you see him, hey, it's those guys. He works a lot in
So I
Denis
guess
films.
I'm sorry, was he kind of what Brad Dourif was in 80? Okay.
Yeah, he's like kind of the lead henchman, his advisor.
Yeah.
What do you think about the look of the Baron here compared to the '84 version? Which do you prefer?
I prefer this version a lot better.
Right.
I mean, I think the 84 one was good for its time. I think it had a lot of DL on it, if you know what I mean by DL, David Lynchisms,
Right.
maybe. But I thought it was a nice look.
Yeah, this Baron is more. He's definitely more of a fat piece of shit in this one compared to like the redheaded one.
Yeah.
I think in the books they say the Harkonnens are depicted as redheads, so that might be a little more accurate.
Gotcha.
Here, the Harkonnens are all bald, which I could sympathize.
Right, right.
But yeah, you get a good look behind the scenes. You kind of see how his like floating and all that kind of stuff, like that we kind of seen in the '84 one works. But yeah, Dave Bautista, it's like one of those things I always notice, and it kind of works with this character. And I don't know what is the cause of it, but like he's got that like hitting him like top of head wrinkles.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It lends itself here, but like it just looks weird when he's actually playing a normal human being. He's playing himself. He's got them head wrinkles.
Head wrinkles.
And it just draws my eye every time. I'm like, oh, we get Dr. Yue back with the Atreides. We get Dr. Yue set up, played by Chang Chen. Him and Paul kind of speak Mandarin back and forth to each other.
Yeah, he kind of warns him to kind of beware of the Bene Gesserit. They got their own agenda, their own angle. Be careful.
Yeah, there's a lot of that too. Like, not only the warning of the Bene Gesserit, but like Paul and him kind of communicate one way. Jessica and Paul use like sign language to communicate back to each other, so that's not to be heard.
Yeah.
Jessica at one point, I think, on Arrakis communicates with one of the Atreides soldiers about a lady kind of using sign language as well. So you kind of see like different like uses of like language in the film, which is kind of nice to see. Another thing about the film itself is like you get a real, I think it's something that Denis Villeneuve does really well, is like you get a sense of scale in this film, like of the ships and the cities and the planets and everything else. You get like a great sense of scale, like going back to like another sci-fi film he did, like Arrival, the same kind of thing, Blade Runner 2049. You just get that sense of scale and immersion, and like I don't think there's a modern day director that can make a better looking sci-fi film than Denis.
Yeah, this was awesome to look at.
I mean,
visually stunning. I mean, no problem with the visuals whatsoever.
Absolutely, like it's just it's perfect in terms of what I would want to see out of this universe. I don't know, for book fans, you have your own ideas in your head, but for me, I think I couldn't have imagined it done any better. I think it's perfect. I think it's a balance of like kind of realism versus some fantastical stuff, but it's all feels grounded. It all kind of feels real and kind of lived in, which is nice. We kind of just like in the first film, we really quickly go to like from Caladan to Arrakis. There's not a lot of him and Holland. We do see like some of the things being packed up, all the bull memorabilia that the House Atreides has, because I think Duke Leto's father died fighting a bull. I think that it's mentioned.
Okay.
But yeah, we see all that stuff kind of packed up. And in this film, at least, like I kind of mentioned when we talked about the '84, we don't go into the testicles and the space guild and the explanation of how space travel works.
Yeah, you don't have any of that.
And how space folding works. I don't think it would fit in this film.
Right.
I don't think the universe that they've created, I don't think that fits, and I don't think you'll see it in Dune Part 2. I could be wrong. You don't need it.
You don't.
At this point, you don't need it. I think it's a neat thing for the book people to know, and like, we know how this works behind the scenes. But like, as far as the movie, you don't need it.
Yeah, visual storytelling, it really doesn't make sense, I don't think.
No, absolutely not. One character, I don't think we really talked about him in last week's video, but in this, he's played by a guy, I don't have his name right in front of me, but Thurfer Hawat. So he's kind of like the guy, he's like the Atreides advisor. He's our kind of alternate, the Atreides version of what we're talking about Polka Dot Man is.
Gotcha.
But he's known as a Mentat. So basically, from what I was looking up, so he's like basically a human computer. Like when he's doing his little,
okay.
When he
So
looks
he
like
was
he's
like
having an
calculating
orgasm.
stuff. Okay.
Yeah, when he looks like he's having an orgasm, he's like, he's actually like kind of like a human computer, and he's apparently known as the master of assassins for House of Atreides.
Nice.
Another thing too, like on Arrakis, like you kind of see when you're like going into, you kind of get that first kind of overall shot of the city. I didn't really think about it too much when I watched this the first time, because it's been I think I watched this one time after it came out, and then now going back to revisit it, you kind of notice how Arrakis, like, I mean, obviously it's a desert planet, it's like 140 degrees in the sunlight, or if more. I think they mentioned it's like 140 degrees at one point that day, but like the city is completely covered. There's no like exposed parts of the city. There's no like outdoor marketplace. There's no like, it's everything is like covered, and everyone is basically inside while you're in Iraq, because otherwise
It's too hot.
you're pretty much dead.
You're gone.
What do you think of the ornithopters?
I like those. The dragonfly looking things.
Yes. Not in the David Lynch film. I assume that they're in the book, but they're not part of the David Lynch film. In the David Lynch film, all the ships are like triangles, gold looking triangles or something like just weird designs there. But yeah, the ornithopters, when I saw those in the first time I watched this movie, I thought they were like really, really cool. So they're like, you know, kind of based on real actual aircraft that they tried to make, but like I guess they're based on like, you know, birds of flight and bats and insects and those kind of things. I just think it's like
It was a cool concept. I liked it.
So what goes down on Arrakis, Todd?
So we get to Arrakis. Like I said, we meet the Thuref Hawat, the computer guy. He's kind of telling him, making him aware of what the situation is.
It's piss poor, to say the least.
Piss poor, to say the least,
The Harkonnens have pretty much sabotaged everything that they can.
Yeah, they've kind of found out that all the refining equipment and all that stuff is just, basically ready to just fall apart. It's just shit. It's a shit show. It's a total shit show.
Right.
I think at one point Paul makes his way outside and there's a guy watering palm trees.
Yeah, he's brought in. I didn't really look that character up or anything. Definitely not in the David Lynch film. But yeah, he's kind of, I don't know if he himself has brought those there, or those palm trees have been brought there and they've just kind of been watered. And he, kind of remarks about, they drink, I think, when you say like the equivalent of 10 men or something in a day or something. Paul's like, should we get rid of them? And like, he's like, no, they have some kind of significance. But yeah,
symbolism, I suppose.
Yeah, some type of symbolism, I guess, for Arrakis, I guess, if something like that can live there or be taken care of and nurtured and live in that environment, maybe something else can. Maybe we can as a people.
And then we kind of see Paul as in 84, he's kind of looking at like some of those video clips of like, the planets, things around it.
Film books, I think is what it's called.
And we see him get attacked by one of those needles.
Oh,
Gom Jabars.
No, that's the Bene Gesserit little needle. Those are called, where is it in my note? Hunter Seekers.
I got the wrong needle, folks. Story of my life.
Sir.
I took the wrong needle.
Yeah, the Hunter Seekers. So, in this one, I really like the look of them here. Much smaller, much more like insect-like.
Right.
Compared to the David Lynch one, was like it looked like a big syringe, floating through the air. Much more discreet. And this is, I don't know if it's explained in the other film. In this film, they actually explain that they walled in Harkonnen into the walls of like, their home.
Yeah.
And like he was piloting from inside that little walled up area. It's some like oxygen, I guess.
How long was that dude there?
I can't remember exactly how they said, but he's just like walled up there.
Right.
We see a meeting between the Reverend Mother, the Bene Gesserit, and the Harkonnen. Because if you know the plot of Dune, it is basically, this has all been set in motion by the Emperor. The Emperor is worried about the power that Atreides, the power and influence that their family has been acquiring over the years, and the love that the people have for them and their military strength. So he's basically set this plan in motion with the Harkonnens to oust them from Arrakis, bring in the Atreides, set them up to fail, and then also set the Harkonnens upon them to kind of destroy their house.
Yeah, it's not enough to just destroy them financially. They want them gone completely.
Yeah, and that's something too. That's a good point too. Like this you kind of get a little bit more behind the scenes. Is like the kind of I think is it the Baron kind of mentions before to Raban, like how much, after we see the attack later, how much it actually cost him to like mount that attack and space travel costs, and like you get a little bit more. It's just like good world building stuff like that you kind of see along the way. But we get that little meeting between the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother and Baron Harkonnen, and did you see the little pet? The little Harkonnen pet spider thing.
Right.
So there's a couple things. I remember hearing about it like when the film first came out. So there was a theory, and there's no proof of it. It's just one of those things. I like to think that it's the case because I think it's kind of cool. But there's a theory that little pet, because the Harkonnens, like, they're known for like their strangeness and their weirdness and like experimentation and like, all the stuff that they do to their bodies and stuff like that, that pet was actually kind of the remnants and the kind of disassembled and reassembled pieces of Dr. Yue's wife.
Oh shit, really?
It's a very, very loose theory. There's absolutely nothing. Let me be clear. There's nothing to back that up. It's not said in the book or anything at all. So there's a lot of different theories from that to like down to the fact that Denis really likes spiders and he just wanted to have the Harkonnens have a weird pet.
Okay.
So anywhere in between there, you choose side.
You find your happy middle ground.
Yeah. Create your own story there. One of the cool things about that I didn't know, just as we get more and more into these Dune films, I find more and more about the lore. So something lore-wise that I found out is that, the Reverend Mother, she is Jessica's mother. Lady Jessica's mother.
Okay.
And apparently she herself, in the book, she planned and I guess executed a rape of the Baron.
Okay.
And did not, the offspring that she had did not live up to her expectations, I guess. So she tried again with the Baron, but this time the Baron raped her. And the offspring of that was Jessica. Which means technically that Paul's grandparents are the Reverend Mother and Baron Harkonnen.
Yikes.
Something I didn't know.
I did not either.
And apparently a fact that is concealed from Jessica. I don't know if I think it's in one of the books, like maybe like Dune Messiah or something, she's actually told about it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that she or anyone else knows. But just a little piece of information I thought was neat to kind of know that Paul's grandfather is the one that destroyed his whole family.
Yeah, because basically she goes there to the Baron and she's like, whatever you want to do, the House Atreides, I could care less. But, Paul and Jessica, they got to make it. Don't hurt them. Yeah, don't kill them.
Yeah, they're under Bene Gesserit protection. And he does kind of hold true to that, but in the most like roundabout, fucked up way, I guess.
He's like, take them out and drop them in the desert. They'll die. We didn't kill them.
we didn't do it. I'm not a liar. Back on Arrakis, again, like the kind of world building here, like I love that you see like the Duke hold like a strategy meeting, and like you just see the inner workings. I know at the time when this was released, a lot of people compared it to like a kind of a Game of Thrones, like a good Game of Thrones, not late season, like early season Game of Thrones when it was still good. Like that kind of political intrigue, backbiting, positioning, like that kind of plotting and stuff. Like I really enjoy all that. Like I wish there was more of that, but I understand why there's not. Like, but I do find that like a kind of an interesting part of the universe is kind of seeing like how everything kind of works, how they're dealing with the shit situation that they've been given, and like the politics behind everything.
Duncan, Idaho kind of shows back up, and we find out that he's actually being in with the Fremen. They kind of accepted him. He's lived among them. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, he brings back Stilgar. Played by Javier Bardem.
I got to tell you something. Until I started looking over the cast for this, I did not know that was Javier Bardem.
Oh, really?
I didn't even recognize the dude.
Yeah, it's him. Like Everett McGill's out, and Javier Bardem is in 2021. Stilgar gifts the Duke the gift of his body's moisture.
Gotta have some spit in the Dune movie.
Gotta have us some spit in the Dune movie. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, so I guess it's a gesture of good faith or respect to like spit.
Because you think about it, that's their probably a whole day's worth of moisture for them guys. You know, 'cause,
and their
yeah.
steel suits, everything
That's
is,
like
is
gold to
recycled.
them. So.
Go, Jerry, go.
Hoi-tui.
We also see now the Emperor has lent his kind of exclusive fighting force, the Sardaukar, to
Yes.
the Harkonnens, and you get a really cool scene of like the it's like kind of it's a training. Well, it's not a training. It's more of a religious kind of ceremonial scene,
Right.
on the Sardaukar home planet. You get like this like throat singer who I think was really doing that for real. I think.
Yeah, that was cool.
And you get this like bloodletting scene, which is kind of really uncomfortable to think about.
Right.
Yeah, like you got all these like Sardaukar warriors kind of kneeled on the ground, and they're taking like the blood of these the blood that's been taken from these. I couldn't really find a 100% answer about like were they like failed Sardaukar soldiers that didn't make it through the program? Were they
Right.
something else? It's just part of the ceremony. It's kind of nebulous there, so I don't have a really good answer. But just it's another part of that. It's another part of the world building, but a little bit more of an uncomfortable one. But an awesome scene. I thought.
It was.
And then you kind of get the back and forth between him and Polka Dot Man about like hey, you're coming to help us, like you're going to help us, take down the Atreides, and
Yeah.
he remarks about they're going up against Gurney and the House Atreides warriors, but the Sardaukar are supposed to be supposedly the best swordsmen
Yeah.
in the
The
galaxy,
best of the best.
the best of the best of the best, sir, with honors. But yeah, I mean, really. From there, it's really just kind of launching into the attack. You want to take us through that, Ton?
Yeah, actually, there's a scene I want to mention. It was between the Duke and Jessica. It's kind of that, I think it was at night, and he's kind of talking to her, and he's like, you kind of get this foreshadowing that Duke knows his days is numbered.
Yeah, I have a note
Yeah.
there. Duke let her knew what
Yeah,
was coming.
Because
That's my note.
he's like, you got to promise me that you'll take care of our son, you'll take care of Paul. And he's like, well, sure. I mean, no, not as his mother, the Bene Gesserit.
Right.
You are going to take care of Paul.
Yeah,
I
and I
thought
mean,
that was great.
yeah, you kind of you know that he knows the writings on the wall,
Yeah.
and we skipped over a big scene, but like there's not too much different from it. But we skipped over the harvester scene,
Right.
but like we in this we don't have Max von Sydow this time. We have a lady. Her name is Kynes. I don't remember the actress's name, but her name is Kynes.
Yeah.
And she's the one that kind of takes them into. She's like the political entourage or envoy or something. She's overseeing the change over.
Yeah, she's overseeing the changeover from, I guess, the Harkonnen command to Atreides.
But I guess it's stated that even though she's overseeing it, it's bullshit, and
Yeah.
the Emperor told her what to do. And
Right.
the Atreides are fucked regardless of what she says.
Yeah.
But she's the one that kind of takes them out into the desert, introduces the steel suits to them. We see that scene. It's absolutely fantastic. Not something I want to gloss over, but it's not all too different from what we see in the
Original.
84 film. But I mean, it's a fantastic scene. You see, one of the things I liked about the harvester and like the process of it, you see how in this one you get the hauler, like you see how it works, like those like kind of the anchors attached to it
Right.
as it lifts it up, and one of those fail, which causes like them to have to kind of rescue everybody aboard. But I mean, it plays out mostly the same. But I mean, it's a fantastic little scene. It's our first exposure to the worms and how they look in this film. Which I from what I understand, reading, they spent like a year just designing the worms and the look of them to make them look prehistoric enough to figure out how their tooth, how their teeth work, all
Right.
that kind of stuff. And like, I mean, they look fantastic. But not that we forgot that, but I just wanted to mention the harvester scene is also an amazing scene here.
And so that night we start to see some people around, the house starting to fall. They're getting took out.
Right.
And then all of a sudden somebody says the shields are down, and you start seeing the forces come down and the attack's begun. And it's the doctor, of course. We knew it's the doctor. He's our double agent here.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking in this one though, like in the same for the 84, but I'm like, man, it's some pretty lax security that one doctor can get
Yeah.
take out the whole Atreides force and like shut the shields down on his own. But I guess when you have the inside track, I guess I can buy it. But
Right.
it's a one man job. Dr. UA is our
It's an
trader.
inside job.
It's an inside job.
And that nighttime battle scene, the explosions, those ships dropping in, that's just visually impressive to me. It was great.
Yeah, it's all executed. I mean, again, the look of the film aesthetically, you can't beat it. Like we get a lot more sense of the attack here. Again, I think budget, effects wise, the 84 was kind of limited in that, so you didn't get a lot of real good action scenes, but like you kind of get the scale of everything, like how many of the Harkonnen forces are there, and then you have the Sardaukar that kind of dressed as Harkonnens and all that kind of stuff, and like we see Gurney kind of take
leading some troops out.
yeah, try to lead a fight back, kind of or to rebel against the attack, but not really working. We see Duncan fight off and kill a few Sardaukar. He kind of gets away in an ornithopter once everything goes to hell, and then we get our I know it was your favorite scene from like the 84 Dune, the poison tooth.
Poison tooth scene, but it plays a lot better here. We don't actually see the tooth getting pulled out.
I was gonna say when I was watching, I was thinking about you. I was like, hey, we don't actually. I was wanting to see. I was like, how do they yank the tooth in this one? Because I know that was something you talked about in the last one. They don't actually yank the tooth in this one.
We don't see it getting pulled here.
It's off screen. Yeah, and you kind of, he tells them the same kind of things. He does what he can for Paul and Lady Jessica. We do see in this one, he kind of like, he brings the peels to Paul that like end up knocking him out. I don't think that's shown in he just kind of wakes up in the, on the Harkonnen ship back in the 84 one. We kind of see a little bit more of how he executed his plans and those kind of things. But yeah, I thought, I told you last week, I thought the gas, the poison gas tooth was executed better than the 84 film, which again,
I would agree. The tooth seems a lot more deadly in this one. It took out a lot more people. It actually even hurt the Baron.
Yes, yeah. He doesn't completely get away unscathed, and like just that kind of visual, like everybody kind of crowded around like this big long table. You've got Duke Leto there, just like naked, sitting in a chair, like completely helpless, and like you kind of see like the Baron talk about He tells him that Jessica and Paul are dead or going to be dead. You see like tear roll down his cheek.
Yeah,
like executed so much better, I thought, than the 84. Again, I'm not trying to shit on the 84 one. Of course, this should be a better made film, a better quality film made so many years later, and I think it is, and it lives up to that. But I'm like, I just love that scene and how it plays out. And like you said, when I was watching the theater, I was like, how did this fat fuck escape this? He just like yoinks himself to the top of the ceiling, I guess, to get away from it. But yeah, Polka Dot Man and everybody else kind of gets, and you see immediately those two guys outside like, fuck this. They just closed the door.
They closed the door.
Yeah,
that shit ain't getting out here on us.
I don't get paid enough for this shit. Yeah, but I mean, overall, I thought, like you, I think the destruction of House Atreides was handled much better.
A lot better scene.
What about the scene on Jessica and Paul captured on the ornithopter?
I thought that played out a lot better. We kind of get a little bit of suggestion that the Harkonnens were thinking about having their way with Jessica. A little uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. There's three. There's a pilot, there's another big guy, and there's a deaf one, which again, Lady Jessica kind of communicates with Paul through sign language. That one of the guys is deaf,
right? Which
is kind of poses a problem when your main power is to use a voice to make people do something.
He tries it one time and it doesn't really work. The guy just gets up and punches him in the face.
Exactly. Like he's still trying to find the pitch that works. He finally does, kind of get the exact pitch enough for him to kind of release take down her kind of her gag.
Her gag, yeah.
And she's able to kind of like set the other ones upon themselves. Just kind of how it played out before. Eventually, Paul kind of takes over the ship. They end up crashing in the desert, and then they kind of turn around to see like the destruction of their house. Really,
yeah.
The destruction of at that point, they know the Duke's gone. Who knows? You would figure Duncan's gone, Gurney's gone. You figure
everybody's gone.
Everybody you're probably the last two of House Atreides, really. And we see Jessica kind of notices that little Mr. Sinister symbol that Dr. Yue has, or whatever that represents. You know. So we see that he's giving them like a frame kit. He's not giving them still suits, but he's giving them a frame kit with that thing that kind of like just like a sand disruptor or something like that.
Yeah.
Duncan shows him one earlier. He's also got that compass that Duncan gave him earlier to kind of guide him through, because I guess if you have a compass on a rocket, it doesn't point north because of some magnetism in the planet.
Gotcha.
Something like that. And then did I have anything else that I'm forgetting?
Well, you're asking the wrong one.
Yeah. Who am I asking here, folks?
Nothing I can come to mind.
Yeah, those are the major kind of takeaways here. What's going on with Paul and Lady Jessica in the desert, though, Todd?
So they kind of have a little scene where Paul kind of, he kind of resents his mother a little bit. He kind of turns on her like, why did you, you know, have me taught all this stuff, or why did you maybe be this way or whatever, something like that.
Right.
And you kind of get the feeling, you kind of, for me, I kind of got it in the scene with Paul and the Duke back on their planet, and you kind of get it here with Paul and his mother. Paul's kind of the reluctant hero.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to be, you know, the leader of House Atreides. He doesn't want to be the Bene Gesserit's one. Then, you know, when he finds a Fremen, they've got their own version of Messiah, and it's him, you know.
Right.
A lot of this stuff is just thrust upon him, and you kind of get the feeling, you know, he's still a young guy. You don't want all this shit.
Yeah, I think in the context of the story, I think he's supposed to be a 15-year-old. I think
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet was like maybe 20 when he played it. So,
Gotcha.
but played as a 15-year-old. But yeah, I think it's a good take on it. Like he's not just like. He's definitely more reluctant to kind of step into the stuff. And then the scenes between him and Lady Jessica, it's also a lot of like, he kind of views it as the Bene Gesserit, and he kind of sees it as the idea of the Messiah and all this, you know, stuff like as kind of like political kind of
angle they're trying to work.
like it influenced by the Bene Gesserit to kind of control people, and less than an actual like him actually being that
A savior.
yeah, which is a good kind of, you know, for narratively, like it works. And like there's a part in that scene where he's kind of he's tripping out on the spice, which kind of you know, worsens his visions, and he kind of like sees it, you know, he's like, you know, screaming, he's like, you know, a religious war in my name, those kind of things. He's kind of having visions of like people fighting in his name and what could come of it, like him, you know, kind of being and rising to, you know, being that savior and all that kind of stuff. And like some really good kind of world building for possible things that may come. And a part about Paul's visions is that they can be accurate, but they can also, they're not predetermined. They can be changed, which is something that we kind of see in like the last part of the film. But I think at this point it's basically like the other really big scene we get before we get into the third act is that Kynes and Duncan kind of eventually show up. Duncan shows up to kind of save them in the desert. He takes them to the Fremen, what are they called? Siege.
Yes.
Yeah, he takes them to one of the Fremen sieges. He meets up with Kynes, and they both kind of partner together to kind of help him. Kynes gives them their steel suits and kind of sets them up with that. And we see that the Sardaukar kind of infiltrate their little, wherever that little facility. She says what it is. It was like meant to.
It was some kind of environmental type facility. Like I think she says that, you know, at first they were going to make Arrakis like this kind of oasis.
Right.
But once they got there and found out that spice was there, it was like, it's never going to be nothing but a desert.
Yeah, where the spice is too important and worth too much. So fuck making an oasis. Fuck the water. We just want the spice. Yeah. And we're going to mine it till the planet explodes, I guess. But yeah, we get the Sardaukar. They kind of come in. There's a cool little scene where like the Fremen kind of warriors there, they kind of like pop up out of the ground and kind of attack them as they're making some kind of primitive form of coffee from their spit. Gotta love it.
Spit coffee.
The best part of waking up, Todd, is some spit in your cup.
If you say so.
Yeah. We see Duncan Idaho. We see his sacrifice to save Paul, which is a kind of a vision that Paul had that does come true. He has the last kind of valiant last stand there. Really good scene. Really good. You know, he kind of has his first kind of fight against the Sardaukar. They end up bringing in some kind of laser to cut the door. Yeah. He's already stabbed. He gets back up and goes to town on those the laser folks as Paul kind of gives enough time for Paul and Jessica to kind of escape with Kynes. And that's our kind of our first look ever in any of these, well, not any of these films, but in this film of worm riding. Or potential worm riding, I should say. So Kynes uses a thumper that we see to kind of attract. Same rules apply here for sandworms. They're attracted to the rhythmic movements, rhythmic sounds in the desert. Something I forgot to mention, which is other good world building, the sand walk.
Oh, yeah. You kind of sidestep and drag your feet.
Yeah. And it's like, again, it's just like a little world building thing, because you would, as a native culture to that planet where you could get eaten by a fucking sandworm, you would probably come up with some kind of way to walk that wouldn't attract them.
Right.
Probably a lot of trial and error there. What do you think? There's like thousands of people like, what if I do this? Ah! Gets swallowed immediately. And okay, write that down.
That didn't work for Smith.
That didn't work for Smith.
You're up next.
Next. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just another really good part of the world building here. We see Paul and Jessica. They kind of get away in I guess a smaller version of an ornithopter.
Yeah.
Because it's only a 2-seater.
A little bit scaled down version.
Kynes gets stabbed by the Sardaukar. She ends up calling the sandworm to them, and she and the Sardaukar are kind of swallowed and devoured whole by the sandworms.
Yep.
And then really, it's the last part of the film is really about Paul and the Fremen. You want to kind of take us through that and tell us what goes on there?
Yes, so they're flying through the desert, and there's some kind of a sandstorm coming up, and I think she kind of told them to try to get above that, but they're getting pursued by the Sicardians. Did I get that right?
No,
Sardaukans.
not even close. Shaka
guy.
Khan, is that what you said?
Shaka Khan.
No, Sardaukar.
Sardaukar.
And I'm probably off of my pronunciation, but I did a lot better than you.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So they kind of they don't pursue them into the sandstorm. I think Batista's character Raban, he just he goes back to report to the Baron, and he's like, they flew into this sandstorm. There's hella winds in that thing.
Hella winds.
They're gone.
They're gone.
And we see the Baron kind of recuperating in a tar oil bath, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what he
Don't
was
know
in.
what it is. Visually, it looks cool.
Yeah.
Don't know what it is. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of get he's part man, part mechanical, maybe.
Well,
I
he's
don't
got all
know.
those suspensors built in, so he can float, and I think his obesity and all that is still part of whatever was inflicted on him by the Bene Gesserit. I think for the time he tried to rape the Reverend Mother, as we talked about before. But yeah, all that's kind of he's more machine now than man, kind of thing.
So anyway, Raban reports back to the Baron. He's like, hey, they flew into this sandstorm. Ain't no way you making it out of that. They're gone.
Right.
So obviously they're not gone. Paul has a vision of one of the Fremen kind of telling him, basically just, let go. Just, let it, and I think at one point Paul actually just lets loose of the ornithopter's controls, and it just kind of on its own makes it through the sandstorm.
Yeah.
They kind of come out the other side. They kind of pack up what they can. They start the sand walk.
Yeah.
They do make their way to the Fremen. They have a little battle. Lady Jessica actually gets the best of Stilgar.
Yeah, Stilgar, their tribe is they kind of, Paul's young enough he can be taught their ways. He remembers him from the meeting with the Duke.
Yeah.
Lady Jessica, you old.
You too old.
You too old, lady. You can't be taught our ways.
She's too old for the training.
Exactly. And let's slit her throat.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gets the drop on Stilgar. All seems well. Stilgar kind of vouches for him and allows them to kind of become part of the tribe.
They're getting ready to head off, but
old Jamis. He protests too much, and he kind of challenges a champion for Lady Jessica. He wants a champion for Lady Jessica to fight him, and I can't remember the ritual combat name that they have for it, but basically in Mortal Kombat to the death for their ability to stay within the tribe. And him and Jamis have kind of a fight. It's kind of, you see this, what I was talking about before, because Paul's vision obviously can be changed, because in Paul's vision, we see he has visions of Jamis, I don't know how you say it, kind of being his mentor with the Fremen, teaching him the ways of the desert and all this stuff. But in actuality, he got to kill the guy.
Yep, and he kept having visions of a knife too, a knife.
Yes, he's gifted. There's a scene before we didn't mention when Lady Jessica kind of arrives. She picks out a housekeeper. When she arrives to Arrakis, she picks out a housekeeper. She kind of uses her Bene Gesserit powers to kind of deduce there's one hiding a knife. I think her name is Shadout. I think is her name.
I think so.
And she presents Lady Jessica with a Chris knife, which is basically the tooth of a sandworm. And eventually that's kind of given to Paul, and Paul uses that to murder Jamis and in the whole Mortal Kombat trial, and gain entry into the Fremen tribe.
Stilgar's like, you're one of us now.
Yeah, and the last kind of scene we get kind of before the credits roll is kind of that kind of hopeful, kind of on a hopeful note of kind of Paul walking through the desert, kind of looking at Chani, kind of his destiny is kind of laid out before him.
Yeah.
Is basically where we're going.
He kind of looks over and sees one of them riding a worm, and he looks back at her, and she's like, "This is only the beginning."
He only was the beginning.
And he says something, I think, a line about desert power.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is something his
Yeah.
father, Duke Leto, they on Caladan they harnessed the power of the sea and those kind of things, and on Arrakis he knew you needed desert power. You needed the people, you needed the Fremen behind you, and you also needed to find ways to harvest the power of the desert.
Yeah.
What better way than a big ass worm?
Exactly. You get the inference that the Duke, he could have given two shits about the spice. His main thing was the Fremen. He knew that they were legion on that planet. And if he could get them on their side with what they already had, they were unstoppable.
Exactly. There's a scene earlier, I think, with him and Thufir where Thufir says that the Harkonnens estimated there was only about 50,000 Fremen on the planet, but through Duncan Idaho's kind of mingling with the Fremens and going to their different sietches, there has to be millions.
Yeah.
Which might come into play
Yep.
in about a week or so, Todd, when we see Dune Part 2.
Exactly.
So, Todd, ready to go into our review?
I'm ready.
So we rank films on a 1 to 10 scale, starting from 1, the ranks are torture, 2, awful, 3, bad, 4, subpar, 5, mediocre, 6, decent, 7, good, 8, great, 9, amazing, 10, masterpiece. Todd, give us your final thoughts and review score for Dune Part 1.
Dune Part 1 was a very enjoyable and visually impressive first act for me in this new Dune film series. In my opinion, Dune 1984 took a knockout in the second round, so this film could come back years later and win the title. I'm now eagerly awaiting Part 2, and I give this film an 8, which on our scale is great.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. One thing before I give my review, just that I thought of, was there anything in the 1984 Dune film that you think did better than this film?
Honestly, as I sit here right now being put on the spot, I really can't think of anything.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing that came to mind when I was writing the question either, but I just wanted to see if you had anything.
No, I mean, honestly, like I say, I don't want this to turn into a beat the pure living shit out of Dune 1984 episode, because that was its own thing at its own time. We went into how we thought that kind of failed in our last episode. But,
right.
This right here was amazing to me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite filmmakers going. He's made some of my favorite films of all time. Dune Part 1 is high on my list. Some of his other films that we're hopefully going to do soon, like Blade Runner 2049, rate even higher to me. I think he's one of the best storytellers out there, from narratively and visually. Like, I just love his visuals. Like, he's right up there with like Christopher Nolan for me. In ways, I think I might actually prefer Denis just because of the films that he's made and just like kind of the structure of them, and like just, I don't know, you just feel like with his films you just get so brought into the world.
Right.
You just feel like you're there, and you feel like everything makes sense. There's nothing that feels off or weird about them. Like, you're just really able to like bring something to life. And like Dune, such a big book, such a beloved series, like to kind of bring that into a modern day film and do it like this much justice. And I think even for me, if someone didn't read the book, if I just kind of look at this material, like, I would say this is pretty close to what I would imagine in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think overall, like, it's not a masterpiece of a film, but like it's absolutely like very, very solid, a very, very great film. Like, and I'm so looking forward to next week when we go see Dune Part 2. Like, I'm so excited. Like, we're hearing lots of good things.
Yeah, I've heard some good things so far.
Yeah,
so.
I'm hearing it compared to a certain second Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I've heard that too. So man,
could it really be that? Could it live up to that? I guess we'll see soon. But for me, I give Dune Part 1 an 8 out of 10, which ranks it as great. So, Todd, can you tell everyone how they can find us and stay up to date with us on social media?
We're at Tau Capes on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Tau Capes Podcast on Facebook. You can also email us at taucapespod@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider following us on your podcast platform of choice and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Popcorn Mumbles will return next week. We want to thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye, guys.
See you guys.